අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Monday, the 17th of April 2023. Drug bust. Sri Lanka Navy apprehends 6 individuals along with over 179 kilograms of heroin in international waters during a joint intelligence operation. Extended. Bangladesh grants 6 more months for the repayment of Sri Lanka's $200 million loan borrowed in May 2021. Not yet over. Cardinal says that their efforts to reveal the truth behind the Easter Sunday attacks will continue.
It is clear that the presidents as well as the politicians who ruled this country since then, as well as the present president and his government and some corrupt state officials have been and are part of an attempt to hide the truth behind these attacks in order to protect the culprits.
Calls on the people to join them to demand justice for the victims on the 21st of April. Politics. The incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe is unable to call a presidential election this year, says Professor G.L. Piris.
It is only a president elected directly by the people who has the flexibility to bring forward that election and to order that the presidential election be held at the end of 4 years rather than 5 years.
While SLPP seeks ministerial positions for a set of their parliamentarians.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Suzanne Shinelli. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, and you're watching First at 9. Now, up first is on the growing drug menace in Sri Lanka. 6 individuals were apprehended along with over 179 kilograms of heroin on international waters off the southern coast by the Sri Lankan Navy last night. The suspects and the seized stock of heroin were brought to the Galle Harbour this morning and were handed over to the police for further investigation. With this latest seizure, the Sri Lankan Navy has held drugs with a gross street value of over 4.9 billion rupees during operations mounted in 2023.
A joint operation by the Naval Intelligence, the State Intelligence Service, the Police Narcotic Bureau and the Sri Lanka Coast Guard was conducted off the little bases in the south of Sri Lanka last night, following information received with regard to a drug haul. During the operation, Sri Lanka Navy inspected a multi-day fishing trawler that was travelling about 244 kilometres off the little bases. The inspection led to the discovery of around 179 kilograms of heroin, which was stashed in 160 packs in 8 sacks in the trawler. 6 suspects were also apprehended by the Navy along with the stock of heroin. It was also revealed that the arrested suspects, aged between 25 and 32, are residents in the area of Trincomalee, Nakulugamuwa, Netolpitiya and Kudawalla. According to the Navy, the gross value of the consignment of drugs seized during the operation is believed to be over 3.5 billion rupees. Further, the Navy believes that the suspects were attempting to transfer the stock of heroin to another boat. This morning, both the suspects and the heroin stock were brought to the Galle Harbour. Later, the suspects and the heroin haul were handed over to the Police Narcotic Bureau for further investigations.
nautical mile කසිය පහක් වගේ දුරක අනිකුත් දීවර යාත්‍රා ප්‍රදේශයේ බහුලව යෙදී මේ යාත්‍රාව සොයාගෙන තරංගුට ගැනීමට නායක හමුදාවට හැකියාව ලැබුණා. මේ සෑම මධ්‍යම භාගයක් රටට පැමිණෙන්නේ මුහුද හරහා දීවර යාත්‍රාවයි. 2023 වසර තුල පමණක් බැලුවොත් එහෙම මේ වෙන විට හෙරොයින් අයිස් සහ තුරුමුහුද හරහා ලංකාවට පැමිණෙන කේරළ ගංජා වැනි මත්ද්‍රව්‍ය කිලෝග්‍රෑම් 3000කට අධික ප්‍රමාණයක් අත්අඩංගුවට අරගෙන නීති මාර්ගයෙන් කටයුතු කරන්න පොලිසියට බාර දීලා ඒ සම්බන්ධව කටයුතු කරනවා.
Bangladesh has extended the repayment period of Sri Lanka's $200 million loan by 6 more months. However, the Bangladesh bank governor said that more interest will be added when the loan repayment period is extended. In May 2021, Bangladesh cleared a $200 million currency swap facility for Sri Lanka to help boost the island nation's economy. Bangladesh has extended the repayment period of Sri Lanka's $200 million loan by 6 more months. According to the Bangladeshi newspaper Dhaka Tribune, the Bangladesh bank governor has said that this to a group of journalists following a meeting with his Sri Lankan counterpart Dr. Nandalal Veersinghe on the sidelines of the 2023 spring meeting of the World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund in Washington. According to the Bangladesh bank chief, Sri Lanka requested 6 more months that has said that the first installment will be settled by August this year and another by September. He also said that more interest will be added when the loan repayment period is extended. In May 2021, Bangladesh cleared a $200 million currency swap facility for Sri Lanka to help boost its economy, becoming the first South Asian country to extend crucial financial assistance to Colombo that year. However, with the deep economic crisis last year, the Sri Lankan government in Colombo could not start repaying the loan and announced an external debt default in April of 2022. As a result, the loan repayment period was extended, with the latest being the third time. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, says that they have not given up on their efforts to reveal the truth behind the Easter Sunday attacks, adding that the struggle will continue. Addressing a media briefing today, the Cardinal criticized the present government and the former government, alleging that they are attempting to hide the truth in order to protect the culprits. With the 4-year commemoration of the deadly Easter Sunday attacks expected to fall on this Friday, the 21st of April, the Cardinal invited Sri Lankans to stand on both sides of Colombo-Negombo Main Road, remembering the victims of the attack and to call for justice.
It is 4 years now since the tragic murder of 272 innocent worshippers in churches and visitors in hotels on the fateful Easter Sunday of 2019. Yet it has not been possible for us up to now to identify the perpetrators behind these attacks and to bring those responsible to book. We have never given up our efforts to find the truth behind these attacks, and that we continue to be committed to that cause. We recall vividly the statement made in earlier times by the former Attorney General that behind these attacks there was a grand conspiracy. It is clear to us and to many others that these attacks were a plot organized in order to gain political power. Even the Parliamentary Select Committee appointed that time by the Yahapalana government affirmed so in its report in the Executive Summary, page 3, report published on 23rd October 2019. It is very clearly written that there was a political plot. It is clear that the presidents as well as the politicians who ruled this country since then, as well as the present president and his government and some corrupt state officials, have been and are part of an attempt to hide the truth behind these attacks in order to protect the culprits. Our attempt is to show to those state-sponsored criminals that we will not stop our efforts at exposing the truth behind these Easter attacks, so that we may expose this evil strategy of theirs and ensure that justice is done. Else, some of these criminals who are now free and are enjoying political protection may be tempted to carry out such attacks again in order to obtain power even in the future. Hence, we call upon all our citizens, irrespective of their racial or religious differences, to unite with us to create a strong human chain on 21st April, Friday, calling for truth and justice for the Easter attack victims. We invite all to gather along the roadside on the Colombo-Negombo Main Road on both sides peacefully by 8:30 a.m. on 21st April, starting from St. Anthony's Church, Kochikade, and up to St. Sebastian's Church, Katuapitiya in Negombo, along the Colombo-Negombo Main Road. Kindly observe 2 minutes silence at 8:45 a.m. and remain in the line from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. Kindly remain silent, standing on the edge of the road, and avoid disturbing the traffic. We expect all to join us as fellow citizens of this our homeland without any consideration of differences. Those working in the offices and factories are invited to stand for 2 minutes in silence at 8:45 a.m. at their own places of work.
Independent parliamentarian and member of Freedom People's Alliance, Professor G.L. Puri, says that the incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe is unable to call a presidential election this year as per the existing constitution. Addressing a media briefing this morning, Professor Puri said that it is only a president elected by the people who can bring the dates for the presidential election forward and not a president elected by parliament.
There is a great deal of talk nowadays about elections that are to take place. There's also some discussion about a presidential election. The law on that matter is crystal clear. There cannot be a presidential election in terms of the existing law at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. The time frames are unambiguously laid down in the Constitution and in the applicable statutory provisions. The presidential election is triggered by a proclamation that will be issued in July 2024. Not this year, but next year. So the entire process commences with that proclamation, which will be issued in July 2024. Nominations will be accepted in August 2024, and the presidential election will take place between the 18th of September and the 18th of October next year. That is the unequivocal position under the existing law. In this country, an executive president is elected once in 5 years. It is only a president elected directly by the people who has the flexibility to bring forward that election and to order that the presidential election be held at the end of 4 years rather than 5 years. This flexibility is available only solely to a president who has been elected directly by the votes of the people of this country. That option is not available to a president who has been elected by parliament to serve out the unexpired portion of the term of office of his or her predecessor. It is not possible. It cannot be done. So all this talk of an early presidential election is entirely without legal foundation. If it is to be done, there must necessarily be a constitutional amendment. That amendment will have to be approved by Parliament by a 2/3 majority.
General Secretary of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna Sagar Karyawasan says that they have requested President Ranil Wickremesinghe to provide ministerial positions to a selected group of parliamentarians in their party. Speaking at an SLPP media briefing today, Karyawasan further emphasized that the SLPP will be launching a new operation process, but not a shift in the party leadership.
අපි පක්ෂයක් හැටියට අපි ඉල්ලීමක් කරලා තියෙනවා ජනාධිපතිවරයාගෙන් මෙන්න මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ට අමාත්‍ය දුර ලබා දෙනවා නම් පක්ෂයක් හැටියට අපි ඒකට සතුටුයි කියන කාරණය. අපි රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහතුමාව ජනාධිපතිවරයා වශයෙන් පත් කරද්දී අපි එතුමා සමග යම්කිසි එකඟතාවයක හිටියා. ඒ එකඟතාවය අනුව අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා එතුමාත් ඒ එකඟතාවයට ගරු කරලා කටයුතු කරයි කියලා. අපිත් ඒ එකඟතාවයට ගරු කරලා කටයුතු කරනවා. එතකොට ඔයි කියන ආකාරයේ බලය සම්බන්ධයෙන් වූ ප්‍රශ්නයක් මෙතෙක් පැන නැගිලා නැහැ. හැබැයි බලය පෙන්වීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නයක් පැන නැගුණොත් ඒ අවශ්‍ය අවස්ථාවේදී අවශ්‍ය පියවර ගන්න පුළුවන්. අපේ පක්ෂේ නායකයා තමයි මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමා.
හැබැයි ඔබතුමාලා කිව්වේ මේ එහෙම නෙමෙයි අවුරුද්දෙන් පස්සේ නව ශක්තිමත් නායකයෙක් ගේනවා කියලා.
නෑ ඒක මේ රංජිත් බණ්ඩාර මැතිතුමා අදහස් කරේ පක්ෂ නායකත්වයේ වෙනස් වීමක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් නෙමෙයි පක්ෂයේ නව මෙහෙයුම් ක්‍රියාවලියක් ආරම්භ කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන්.
More updates to come right after this short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්. මේ අලුත් අවුරුද්දේ හිත පිරෙන ගනුදෙනුවකට හොඳම තැන හිත ගිය තැන බැංකුව HNB.
අසම සම සන්නාමයක ශක්තිමත් බව ෆිච් ඒ මූල්‍ය වර්ගීකරණය හිමිකරගත් එකම රක්ෂණ ආයතනය. පස්වන වරටත් ග්‍රෑන්ඩ් ෆයිනෑන්සි වැඩිම වටිනාකමකින් යුත් සාමාන්‍ය රක්ෂණ සන්නාමය සහ ඉහළම ජනාදරයට පත් වූ රක්ෂණ සන්නාමය ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්.
Welcome back. Now, Sri Lanka has requested Bangladesh to resume negotiations to sign a proposed preferential trade agreement by April with the intention of boosting bilateral trade between the two friendly countries. According to the Bangladeshi newspaper Financial Express, the preferential trade agreement negotiations between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are expected to resume on the 27th of April or in the first week of May. Sri Lanka has requested Bangladesh to resume negotiations to sign a proposed preferential trade agreement by April with the intention of boosting bilateral trade between the two friendly countries. According to Bangladeshi newspaper Financial Express, the Lankan High Commission in Dhaka has proposed to hold a virtual meeting on the 24th of April to discuss the current status and the way forward as part of the move. The mission has also requested Dhaka to inform its concurrence on the proposed date soon. A Bangladeshi official concerned about this matter has told Financial Express that they have received a note verbal from the Sri Lankan High Commission in Dhaka and they are working on the issue. However, the official has said that they are not in favour of resuming negotiations on the 24th of April as proposed by Colombo and added that the date will have to be deferred as it's an Eid ul-Fitr holiday. He said that the preferential trade agreement negotiations between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are expected to resume on the 27th of April on the first week of May. Despite the agreement not seeing the light on the day due to internal issues, earlier in 2017, both Dhaka and Colombo completed the necessary preparations to sign a free trade agreement. However, the Commerce Ministry of Bangladesh is now trying to start talks with 24 countries, including the US and Canada, for signing PTAs to help boost the country's export earnings. The Road Development Authority today announced that the revenue generated from the expressway tolls within the last 48 hours exceeded 70 million rupees. According to the RDA, the total number of vehicles that had used the expressways within the 48 hours period ending at midnight yesterday was 256,225. In general, the number of vehicles using the expressway is around 90,000 per day, while the total income generated per day is nearly 25 million rupees. Sri Lankan shares snapped 3 sessions of gains on Monday, dragged down by losses in financials. The all-share price index was down by 0.1% to 9,405.90 points, while the S&P SL20 was up by 0.5% to end at 2,762.88 points. Trading volume for the CSE all-share index rose to 46.1 million shares from 40.8 million to the previous session. The market turnover rose to 1.29 billion rupees or $4.04 million from 947.5 million rupees in the previous session. Transportation sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while capital goods sector was the second highest contributor to the market turnover. Foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 220.2 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 1.15 billion rupees. The top gainers for the day were Expo Lanka, Aitken Spence and Haley's. Now let's take a look at how the rupee has traded against other major currencies during the day. Oil prices were steady today as investors eyed Chinese economic data for signs of demand recovery in the world's second largest oil consumer. The release of China's first quarter gross domestic product data this week is expected to be positive for commodity prices, with the International Energy Agency forecasting it will account for most of the demand growth in 2023. Brent crude futures were down 13 cents to $86.18 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $82.33 a barrel, down 19 cents. Both contracts notched their fourth weekly gain in a row last week, the longest such streak since mid-2022. The release of China's first quarter gross domestic product data this week is expected to be positive for commodity prices, with the International Energy Agency forecasting it will account for most of 2023 demand growth. The data are due to be published at 2 a.m. GMT tomorrow. However, the IEA warned in its monthly report that the output cuts announced by OPEC Plus producers risked exacerbating an oil supply deficit expected in the second half of the year and could hurt consumers and global economic recovery. Meanwhile, tightening supplies, oil exports from northern Iraq to the Turkish port of Ceyhan remain at a standstill almost 3 weeks after an arbitration case ruled Ankara owed Baghdad compensation for unauthorized exports. Rising costs for Middle Eastern crude supplies, which meet more than half of Asia's demand, are already squeezing refiners' margins, prompting them to secure supplies from other regions. Refiners are also ramping up gasoline output ahead of the peak summer demand while cutting diesel production amid worsening margins. And that wraps up First at 9 tonight. Sanavi Mudannaika will join you next with World News Tonight. Stay safe and have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.